I
Good
shared
morning,
it on my.
everyone. Welcome to SCube TV. We all go through some stressful times in our lives. I mean, let it be education or finance or the marriage or relationships. Here we have a guest we can talk about. Healing through humor. Miss Michele Traina is here with us to share her experiences, and especially during the divorce. And she is the founder of the creator of the Divorce Diaries program, and she's an educator and a performer. Welcome to SCube TV, Miss Michele Traina. How are you today?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. S Cube TV. I'm saying that correctly too, right? S Cube TV.
Yes,
I
yes.
love it. I'm so
Okay,
excited
thank
to
you.
be here. This is like my international debut right now I don't think I've done any pandemic international stuff, so I'm so excited. I shared this on Facebook. I dreamt about it last night. I was excited.
Very nice. I know what made you. I know you have done many programs and started the Divorce Diaries. So I would like to ask you one thing. Start this program with one question, fundamental question. What are the critical points? In a relationship,
Okay, so the critical parts of a relationship from perspective as a divorced woman.
marriage, or
Yeah.
are two people. A boy and a girl
So
together. Yeah.
yeah, I think that that was great. I think that the critical parts of a relationship are communication, laughter, and intimacy for a spouse and or partners. Whatever. I think those are three main important parts: is communicating, intimacy, and laughter. Three things essential items of a relationship.
Very nice.
Married or even if you don't get married, I think if you commit to somebody and you're like, this is the person I want to be with for the rest of my life, or for long term, because a lot of people now don't like to use that word, the rest of your life. And especially during the pandemic, people are taking marriage to be well, till death do us part, because when I die, eternity is not going to be with this person. I am sick of him. No, I'm just kidding.
Gotcha. I know. Yeah, it's a little challenging thing for many people. We go with into anything. With one intention, and halfway through, things change, and then we see in a different angle from each other. So, what are the signs of path to breaking up? There are that we all. People when they are young. They get in love and then get together. But what are the signs when somebody, either a boy, especially a girl, should look for something is not going right? There should be the warning signs little ahead
Yes.
of time, rather not don't come all of a sudden and then you break up, right?
Yeah, I think that signs definitely happen. The red flags that appear in front of my face in relationships, I tend to not so much ignore, but I pretend oh, it's a red flag, means Valentine's Day. No, Michelle, red flag is a bad sign. The biggest red flag for me, and that has shown up in most of my relationships that have turned the relationship sour, is that the man has tried in my situation, my ex-husband and other men, they've haven't fully accepted who I am. And it's not that, I changed to be more equipped to give them what they need, and I don't get satisfied. And it's my fault, because I do that in the relationship. I tend to want to fix it, or accept that they're not meeting me halfway, and then I get frustrated, and the relationship ends.
Gotcha.
Or sorry.
No,
I mean,
go ahead.
I think that a lot of times for me, if not most of the time, I have been in a relationship with a boyfriend or an ex-husband that does not fully support me, does not come to see my shows, or doesn't fully invest time in me. And that's been my biggest problem. And it's been the biggest red flag that has shown me this person is not for me, and this is not going to work out long term, and sometimes short term.
Gotcha. So, do you like to share? Your own story, and then
Yeah.
ready to start your own program, please.
Okay. I love it. So I'm an Divorce Diaries and Propbox Players are my two like brands under my name, Michele Traina, and I have a background in theater, dance since I was a kid. So I just decided to, get a degree in theater, pursue acting for a long time. And then when I met my ex-husband, I didn't want to travel as much because as the life of an actor is, to work, you got to go where the gigs are, whatever you're getting. So I was traveling a lot in my 20s, and I met my ex-husband. I settled down in the sense of like got a degree, a master's degree in educational theater because I didn't want to give up my passion of performing, but I also knew I needed a little bit more stability so that I can raise a family in the sense of, I don't want to be traveling and then how am I going to have a child and how am I going to be with my husband that I love so much? Like, how am I supposed to do those things? So I at the time thought I had to shift gears and get this more stable career, which it is financially for some, but and I fell in love with this program that I went to at NYU, and I'm also a teacher at a similar program at Adelphi University now. It's educational theater, and it helps artists specifically, or those who, I feel like everyone's an artist inside, learn how to use theater as a learning tool. So I got my master's and I did both. I taught and then I also performed. But I had switched roles from performer full-time to teacher full-time, performer part-time. And then for years I was teaching theater, and I started my own theater company called Propbox Players, in addition, which came about when my daughter was born. And I felt like Propbox Players was a key factor in starting to show that like I can't just let my performer side go. And I did a lot of changing and shifting when I got in a relationship that led into a marriage. And I lost that part of me that is me that you see in Divorce Diaries. And then as I was doing Propbox Players, I got a divorce, and Divorce Diaries came along because I couldn't not put this on stage. I always put things on stage that I go through. When I was a full-time teacher in an inner city in New Jersey, I put a one-woman show together in the United Solo Festival in New York City. And then I just felt like the natural progression of I'm doing this, I'm getting divorced, I'm moving back home with my parents. I also am living with my grandmother, who is potty training alongside my daughter because it was in her 90s. So I felt like you can't make this up. This is my divorce diary. I kept saying it. This is my divorce diary. Like I kept thinking of like confessionals, reality shows, and I kept coming up with the term of divorce diary. And then it started about 4 years ago. It started as in a one-woman theater piece, and then ever since then, it just continued to build into something bigger. I created it more into a stand-up show, an improv show, when I started doing stand-up about 3 years ago. And oh gosh, the timeline is crazy right now because 2020 feels like it's been going on for 10 years. So so sorry if I'm going in all different mazes, like my brain sometimes is a single mom, but basically theater artist, educator. And then in my 30s, when I got divorced, I started going back to performing full time. And I have finally felt to where I'm back in my own like body, if that makes sense, because for 10 years, I felt like I shifted away from who I was, which was this performer, this outspoken, flirty, sexy, but can also be, appropriate person, because I was getting a divorce. I was teaching in a school district full time. I had to, have two different hats and hide my divorce diary show because it's not all the time PG, and finally I'm in this position where I left my school district. I'm just doing my theater company and acting gigs and my divorce diary show. And I'm finally comfortable sharing to everybody who I am, where I don't have to hide anything, if that makes sense. So
I mean, you're teaching, and then I agree with teaching to the school, and then also this program, as I said, is not PG. Sometimes it will be a little challenging, and especially the young kids, how would they take it will be a little different. So coming back to your own story, which is not many people will be able to, speak out, because that's a big taboo item, the divorce especially, and also the relationships you have. not many people will come out and speak openly and share their stories, actually, which will be helpful for other people to be uh, if you look at it seriously. I mean, it will be helpful for many other people who are going in the similar situation.
I
So
am
thank
so
you very
glad you
much.
say that.
Yes, it does. I mean, everybody will go through it. It's not that, I mean, okay, some people have to compromise and some people have to, I mean, depends on the differences, how big the differences are, and those kind of things. So, God, you want to say something?
I think that compromise is important if it doesn't make you unhappy. Because I think there's a very fine line between like, I'm going to shift because this is what he wants, but then it's like, or she wants, but then it's, you start to lose pieces of yourself if you do that constantly. So, I think definitely got lost in compromise.
I agree. I mean, it all depends on how much do you compromise and what to what extent. I mean, you need to draw the lines. I mean, at the same time, I mean, it's my experience. Let it be in the business relationships or in the personal relationships or friendship, the pure friendship. I mean, without compromise, I don't think you can maintain a relationship for sure. Sorry.
Yeah, I think no, go ahead. I'm sorry. I think that's a great point to make also in business relationships because like I tend to do the opposite in my business relationships. I've handled them better than my actual boyfriend relationships or my ex-husband. Like I just have a bad pattern with that. But when it comes to business, I'm like, no, because I don't know. This is like the treasure, and I don't guard my heart as like I guard my career, which I'm actually never said before. I feel like I guard my career with more like with more, not vengeance is the wrong word, with more grit and heart. And like with my heart though, I'm like, take it. I love you too. And then they're like stomping on it. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't let that happen in business. So what am I doing this for in my personal life? But it's hard, when you fall in love with someone and you also have a patterning of falling for the wrong man or
Yeah.
woman, and.
That's good. So what are the things we should? I mean, why? Most of the times when we see the divorces here, either in US or any part of the world, we see women being in the receiving side, or I mean, I don't know, sometimes in the men also, but majority. So what? I don't want to get into the specific gender base, but what exactly the women will be losing, or what points will they should look for?
So say that one more time. What part?
Yeah,
What
and
part?
during the divorce process, I
Mhm.
mean, what are the things women should look for, and what should they take care of?
Okay, so the first thing in a divorce is trust no one. And I say that because I felt like I wasn't going to, not that like, I just felt more trusting of my ex-husband's side than I should have. Because when it comes down to it, and we're both on a good side, both on a good page now. We both talk to each other's families. We're not on a bad page. But when it came down to the divorce, that's their son and my I'm their daughter. So you don't trust anything. And I think that you have to act from your gut, not from your heart, because stuff gets real ugly. I think you have to avoid texting and rant texting, number 2. So trust no one, avoid rant texting, because I tend to do that. And 3, the biggest thing to be prepared with is to accept the failure. I'm not saying that in a negative way, but I had to accept it because I was failing in finances at the time, and I was failing with a complete and utter disappointment on my ex-husband. Like he was completely disappointed by the fact that I wanted the divorce, and his family was, and it was like failed at the money. My child was going through developmental delays and had to go through a bunch of evaluations, which was extremely stressful. My dog got hit by a car too at this point in time. I think maybe right before I filed for divorce. It was a lot of things that started to feel like, what the heck? How can I what's going on, and I had to accept the failures, because if I didn't, and be okay with it. Like, in other words, don't feel embarrassed by it. And that's hard to swallow, which is another reason why I started Divorce Diaries, because I was like, I'm going to monetize off of my divorce, off the pain. So accept it, because it's okay. I had to do a short sale in my house. I had to move back home with my family for 4 years, and I wasn't intending to move for 4 years. Once I've accepted it and feel like it's not a failure, it's just a bump that's really beautiful, because beautiful things come out of that period of time, even though it's rocky. And that's when you really learn, and that's when you really process things, and that's how you really grow. Then it doesn't seem like a failure, but if you accept that fail, you'll start to realize there's beauty within it. So those are like 3 main things I would recommend upon coming to the divorce.
And that's a good point. So first of all, as you said rightly, you need to accept the situation rather than, getting depressed and then getting into other side emotionally. Uh, that's the one thing I would like. Yeah, that's a good point you made. And what are the other financial aspects of the divorce? Can you talk about it before we go to how
Yeah.
to heal? Yeah.
So the finances were devastating, because I was so overwhelmed with being behind in our mortgage, being caught up with how am I going to pay the lawyer fees, that I had to handle one thing at a time. And that was in my life. I've always tried to plan things out and cover all areas, and I would worry about it to the point that I just want to make sure I have everything together, because I'm very type A. So the financial part, at that point, I never had bad credit. I always was okay with money. And then my ex-husband wasn't refusing to pay the mortgage. It was just a bad, dark time. And we also were underwater in our house, because what I think happened, I got pregnant, and I was teaching in a school that closed during my pregnancy. I was right before I was going to give birth, and it wasn't renewed its charter. So we knew I was going to be out of work, which was okay, because I had planned on staying home for longer. So it worked out. But it was hard to keep up with finances. And for some reason, my ex-husband kept saying he didn't have enough money to pay the mortgage, which was weird to me, because he was an engineer. I was like, we have enough. We were struggling with money, and to sell the house, we would have been underwater, because we just bought the house for 2 years. So I had to make a big decision because I didn't want to stay there. I was like, we need to sell the house. We're going to get divorced. We need to sell the house, because neither of us could keep the house alone. It's too expensive. So in selling the house, because it was underwater, we had to do a short sale. And that was hard, because we either going to foreclose or have a short sale. And we didn't want to foreclose, because that stays on your credit for a long time. So it was a really bad period. I was very sad about that. But I had to deal with one thing at a time. Selling the house was number one, and getting a lawyer was number two. So those are the first two. And then after that was settled, I handled all the other stuff I was behind in. And eventually I put myself in it was called Take Charge America, a debt program, and paid myself out of debt. I think last year or year before, I finally was out of debt from all of it. I just have student loan debt, but I just had to handle one thing at a time. One thing at a time, which I used to hate hearing people say, but that was all I could do, because I was just like, you know what? I'm going to get on back to my happy feeling again. So who cares? Okay, my credit's going to be messed up. You know what? I'll learn from it and I'll move forward. I was in my early 30s at the time, so it wasn't as bad to feel like, I think even if you're in your early 40s, who cares? You just move on. And it sucks. It's a sucky feeling, but to answer the question with finances, you have to take care of one thing at a time and think of the overall big picture. I was not the kind of divorce where it was like, I want this too, and I want that too. I had to really, really pull teeth to get the smallest amount of money that was owed to me. And it was hard to swallow. At times, very frustrating. Still a sore issue. So sometimes I have to look at the bigger picture, accept who the other person is, and try to pick and choose battles with that financial aspect with my ex-spouse.
That's it.
Sorry, if I'm going on too much, please stop me.
No, that's fine. I mean, we would like to hear more from you rather than me. That's fine. I mean, you're a performer, so you're doing it rightly. So we are okay. You're doing very, very well. Nice.
Yay.
Yep. So another thing is another aspect of the divorce is mostly the children involved in the marriage is
Yep.
another big challenge. So can you talk a little bit? I mean, how to handle what do they go through? Uh,
Well,
what should be done to them?
I think that when you have a child obviously children are in play, it's always difficult to navigate. I think everyone's situation is different. And if you give your advice, it may not suit another family's needs because of the nitty gritty details of their relationship, that spousal relationship. I think from my background as an educator, I just go with this rule of thumb of like, well, I wouldn't say certain things in front of my students that are inappropriate, and I wouldn't do the same thing for my child about her dad. So it's just always been that rule of thumb. I think that now she's a little bit older, so if him and I are on a definite cordial page, if we throw digs at each other that are not like super nasty, we both kind of just say it to each other's face. It's not anything negative or bad. However, I'm human and he's human, and everybody is human, so you're going to have little mistakes that you make, and you should be honest with your children and transparent enough to be like, yeah, you know what, I feel that way because it's how I feel, but he's your father, he's a good person, or she's your mother, she's a good person and she loves you, and wrap it up, you know what I mean? Like, don't obviously slay the other person, but you have to think of it almost like you're this teacher or this in this professional business realm when you're around your daughter or your son or your children speaking about the other person, right? Like, not going to badmouth your boss at work and to other employees because that makes you look bad. So it's that same kind of lens, with your children. That's the best thing you can do, because if you show your negative energy towards that person, they feel it. They feel it even if you don't say it. They can feel it from your body. My mom is amazing and supportive and has been my ride or die along with my late father. But my Italian family, especially my mom, has a little bit of a tendency to throw little digs, only because she's so protective of me. And it's not that she does not have any hatred or anything like that towards my ex-husband, but she just like throws little digs. And my daughter's 8. And at one point she's like, does grandma not like daddy? I was like, no, why would you say that? Because she'd say a comment with a tone or like a sigh, and my daughter would catch on to it. I was like, Mom, you gotta stop doing that. She goes, no, I didn't mean anything by it. I just know how hard you work, Michele. Like, so, and we talk about it. We are transparent enough and open dialogue enough to just bring it up and say, look, we're human. Sometimes we have reactions and it's okay. Being honest and transparent is very important to children. And
very good point. I mean, you meant you be honest, and you just said rightly. I mean, we are all humans, and you do have emotions, and we may not be right all the times. I mean, we may say some things which are not may not be right, but I mean, at the same time, you should be honest with the people who you care for. Yes.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. That's a good point. So, I mean, another thing was you brought up, I mean, your mother. So that's what I want to ask. Another question about the support system you have when you go through all these things. Not everybody will be fortunate enough to have a supporting family or a supporting friends or support system. So, I mean, how do you handle the scenario with your support system you have?
I mean, pre-pandemic, I had my mom is a huge support. My mother is and was. I mean, she still is right now. I mean, but my daughter's father lives an hour away, so it's harder for him to be as active in her life. He is active in her life, but it's just, to run to the store if my daughter struggles sometimes with wanting to go with me. It's like I can bring her to my mom sometimes, but I have to say, if I didn't have my mom, it would be a lot harder. So I'm very lucky and fortunate to have my mom and to have I have a brother and a sister-in-law who also, we switch off with my niece. But my mom has been my backbone and support. And yeah, yikes, I would have been lost. I probably wouldn't have been lost, but I would have been definitely a lot more frazzled if I didn't have my parents and, that support when I was going through the divorce to be able to move back home, save money, and get out of a hole with finances. That was a huge blessing. With my child now, it's harder because it's all me all the time, 24 hours a day. Homeschooling, working from home, mental health issues that arise in this pandemic. I mean, I've had friends and family members in my own family, like where children are suffering from this lockdown. And I get that it has to happen, but it's been rough. It's been hard to learn from a screen like this. And it's been very challenging. It's been definitely put me to the test of patience. But my mom does still help when she can. So the number one thing is if you have one person in your life as a single parent that can help you and support you unconditionally without any kind of, negativity, then you are blessed. Trust me, because I feel it. And I know I should be more grateful and breathing gratitude at every moment of my day that I have my mom.
It's very nice. Nice to hear that. I mean, you got very good support from your mother. So good for you. And thanks for, I mean, I'm sure any parent would do that one. I mean, but at least you're lucky to have your mother with you. That's very nice. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Coming back to your main point is like, how do you heal through this tough times? I mean, it's many people we've seen. I mean, a teenager or a young adult and or a middle-aged people, they go through many issues, and especially the separating from your loved one. I mean, who you've been trusting or depending or living for a long time, and all of a sudden you're sick. So it will be hard for anyone. I mean, whoever it may be, it will be very hard for sure. So how do you cope up? How do people cope up with these kind of situations? Instead of going negative side, I mean, need to come to the positive and move on in the life.
I think that the monetizing off one's misery. I know that sounds like odd, but it's a nice tag, because you monetize off of your sadness, right? It turns into something that's gold. I think if you process in a way where you're, however you process bad feelings, okay, if it's negative, if it's drinking or smoking, right, that's not good for you. So what's a positive thing you do to process, right? For me, it's writing. For me, it's dancing. For me, it's performing. For me, it's doing stand-up comedy. And comedy is really where my heart is I love making people laugh. So I felt like I always am this overachiever who's underachieving in life, in certain aspects of my life. And I want to do a story based around my divorce that shows that character, because we all have that character within us that succeeds in struggling, right? With whatever moment it is in our life. We have had that moment, single, married, divorced. And that was a way for me to cope, and still is a way for me to cope with failures, with positive things, even with anything that is a challenge in my life. That is how I process, and that is how I heal. And it's what makes me want to get up in the morning and say, I want to leave this imprint on the earth now. And I'm a big Gary Vaynerchuk fan, and I think he wrote this in Crushing It, how he wants to rock it in the afterlife too, doing that. And that's kind of how I feel. I just want people to understand how they can heal themselves by doing something they love to do, and then find out, and they can also monetize off of it, so that they're happy doing what they love. They're happy working, and they're happy with their family, and it's throughout their life, even when they're not happy, they're finding the beauty and the humor in that unhappy moment, and letting it help them, right? Say, it's okay, it's been a crappy day, but I have this moment right now where I'm finding this that's going to feed me even more. So to sum that up again, it's just to find what you love to do that is healthy for you, mentally, physically, emotionally, and keep doing it. Whether you're getting divorced, whether you're getting separated, whether you're getting whether you lost a spouse or if it has to do with something else in your life. I think that's the main mantra of my life and what's kept me going through a lot of difficult times.
Very, very nice, very nice. And yes, I mean, well, usually, I mean, when we are during the tough times, we always seek some sympathy from others, and I mean, we will be depressed, and we want somebody else to come and say that you're right and you're okay, and you those kind of things, which is okay to have those feelings, but at the same time, I mean, yeah, everybody's valuable. I mean, and as you said, I mean, there are people. I mean, you're beautiful the way you are. There is a song and other things other people say. So you're here for a purpose. So you should work towards what you find out your strengths. As you said, rightly, you find out what is right for you, good for you, emotionally and physically, and move on, which is very nice. But it's as it is. I mean, easy to say, but it's hard to implement these kind of things. Most of us we
Yeah.
know these things. So is there any specific tips which are any steps which you can share with the audience? That's I mean, we can easily preach or say and those kind of things, but into
Yes.
yeah.
I'm so glad that you said that, because it's so easy to say these things because we hear them from all these motivational speakers and I listen to it over and over again. But how do you actually practice it? Okay, so this is how I actually practice it. I get up and I come up with what is the main goal of my day that's going to really make me feel like I've got something done, right? So I always write it on, post it on my computer or in front of me, okay? And I have to be very disciplined in sticking to one because I'll write 10. What's the main thing, right? Last week, I was like, the main thing of this week is I got to fix my health insurance. Yes, I want to get booked. I wanted my show to be on the network. I want to get more leads. But my main point last week is to get my health insurance. And then I'll feel like I got closer to the next thing, right? So I try to stick to a goal a day that leads to my short-term and long-term goals, right? And then I stick to a schedule. So writing a goal down and then sticking to the schedule. And then the third is, I'm gonna hold on to the third one for a second. So when I stick to a schedule, this is what I mean. I am a comic, I'm a performer, I'm an artist, right? So what do you think would be the main thing I do every day to practice doing what I love to do every day? What do you think is the main thing I should do?
I mean, maybe practicing few of the jokes or anything which are write them and then practice them once or twice.
So exactly. So what I said to myself last year was like, things was getting really overwhelming. I was transitioning back to performing full time. I was leaving my full time teaching job. I was like, how am I going to do all this? I thought to myself, let me remind myself of three things. Every day, do what I love to do, whether that's teaching or performing, love on my daughter, and pray. And that is how I practice what I preach, right? I go back to those three things. And so when I'm thinking of my day schedule, I'm like, I got to write or I got to perform or do both every single day because that's what I love to do. And if I'm not doing it every day, then I'm not practicing that stuff, right? So like right now, this is what I love to do and I'm doing it. So boom, done. But I try to fill every moment of it on. So I got to love on my daughter too, right? And even in the moment, like she had a moment this morning where it's Monday. Nobody wants to be on a screen at school. I don't. And I was a teacher. and I'm sure the teachers don't want. We're tired. They're tired. It's the holidays. What do you want to get out of this day? She wants to make slime. She wants to have fun. She wants to see her friends. What can we do that attributes to one of those things, right? So you keep it simple. Keep it simple and come up with what you want to do every day. Like if someone says they want to start their own business, right? Then they don't know how. Every day, they need to spend 1 hour doing something related to that goal that makes them happy. If they don't, then, they're getting in their own way, but don't, just do it. So, all right. So the three things that I came up with, right? Love on my daughter, perform or teach every day because I love doing those things, right? And then pray. And I pray because that helps me not have anxiety or fears or get stuck on what I didn't do today, right? And then that's it. And then all the other stuff that's like, I have to call my health insurance. I have to call the PSE&G bill. I have to do this. I have to clean. It starts to fade away because I went back to those three things of love on my daughter, do what I love to write or perform or teach, and pray. So I hope that answered the question.
No, that's good. Good. I mean, yeah, the third point I like it, the pray. I mean, I like the first two too. I mean, yeah, the third one is in particular. The reason is the science, and then the even the scientists have been saying that the meditation is helping your mental health, and also the anxiety and BP and your physical health also. So there is a study. I mean, a research study is there for sure. It's going to help the during the stressful times for sure. So this,
Oh,
I'll leave it there.
absolutely.
Yeah. And do you like to talk about your shows, please? I mean, how did you start? And I mean, I'm
Yes.
thinking about the show. Everybody would like to. I would like to have my own show, but I mean, it's not that easy. And
No, yeah, of course, yeah. So Divorce Diaries. I know I mentioned it a little bit before, so I'll try to keep it a little bit more short, but expanding on what has happened this last year. But Divorce Diaries show started. I thought it was 4 years ago. I actually think it was 3 years ago. But I did a viewing of it in the works at an emerging artist theater in New York City as a one-woman show. And it started with dance, and it was more theater based. And then I was doing stand up, and I was like, this has got to be a comedy, because people are like, I had my friends see a performance of it in New York City. I rented out a space, and they were crying, like in a bittersweet way. And I was like, no, I don't want people to cry. I want them to be laughing their butts off at the hysterics of my life. Right. So I turned it around, and I created a stand-up show with other divorced comics and me headlining. And then I would do improv at the end of the show, and I would be arguing with another actor or another audience member or myself on stage, arguing as if we were a divorced couple. And then from that, I realized that my real vision was my one-woman comedy show of my life, in those different aspects of doing stand-up, doing improv, and some of the X's in my life. So it became this one-woman comedy show because live has evolved over the last couple of years. It's a 30 minutes of stand-up. If you see it in person, 30 minutes of stand-up. I do I think it's 10 minutes of improv, and then another part where it's sketch comedy, and you get to meet some of the exes that I play. It's called Michelle Does Her Exes, loosely based off of some of the exes I've dated post-divorce. There's a game called Who Argued It Best, and I play the man and the woman, and I argue a topic chosen by the audience of a spousal or ex-spousal disagreement. Sometimes I have a feature comic, a good friend of mine. He's also a writer, Doug Bass, in LA. We've known each other since high school. He will come to feature the show and sometimes argue with me. It depends on his schedule. Oh, there, I can see myself now. Woohoo! And so that's the live show. Now, I Want Divorce Diaries is an entertainment brand. That's how I look at it. And it will be on a network someday as a either scripted or unscripted show. So that was always my vision of it, was cameras following me around on my day. So, and kind of being this working class mom, beautifully failing while she's optimistic in the middle of a pile of mud that's drowning her, So because it all came from the fact that every morning I'd rush and be running and be failing at dating and failing at my finances. I get ahead, then I get 5 steps back in every aspect. And the one beauty was the comedy and of my entire life. And I was doing it on stage, and I was like, this would be funny to show other people, because everybody's feeling this way about their day. They're stuck in traffic. They tripped and fell into mud and then they have a date. They spilled wine all over their shirt, and now they have to go home, and their parents that they're living with are like, oh, you were drinking? God, Michele, it's a weeknight. You have to really, you're a mother. And I'd have to have guys on dates, and I would meet in my car. I have to say goodnight to them in the car. I do a joke about that. I'm like, my father would know what's going on outside. He turned the light on. I was 15 years old. I'm like, oh my God. All right. So the show is a live show, and now it's expanding into all video content right now because of the pandemic. I do it virtually every other Saturday night, and it's I'm going to be doing a New Year's Eve virtual edition with special guests and surprises. I've had some law firms have sponsored my show, even before the pandemic, which is awesome. And I've done some private events and stuff like that, but in the pandemic. But prior to that, I traveled all over the country with the show. I did it monthly in New York City at Broadway Comedy Club. I've performed it at Caroline's a couple years ago. It's been at Zany's Chicago, Zany's Nashville. It's been in Vegas. It's been a lot of places, and I'm excited to keep bringing it to places once the pandemic's over. And hopefully the virtual edition will keep expanding the audience as well. That's the beauty of the pandemic has been, I've created a tight little group of people that tune in, and I don't charge for the virtual edition. I keep it by donation for some of the shows. If you want to contribute to the show, great. If you can't, I totally understand. So I hope that gives you kind of a nutshell of Divorce Diaries, the live show, and then where I'm looking to head with it. In addition to this live show, it's, like a Seinfeld, where it's on a network and it's making people who are not just the rich who get divorced see that there's this struggle that's funny, that's relatable, that is realistic and authentic, that I don't feel like a lot of these shows capture. And I like a lot of these shows on television, like Single Parents and Divorce with Sarah Jessica Parker, but it's not realistic with working middle class women.
Gotcha. I would ask you, where can they find, how to buy the tickets? Where can where can anybody find more information about your shows? What is your next show? When is that?
Yes. So you can find all information about Divorce Diaries on divorcediaryshow.com if you want to go to the website, or on social media. I'm on every single social media platform, whether it's Divorce Diaries Show or Michele Traina, but Divorce Diaries Show is on every single platform. I think I'm on, the only thing I'm not on is Twitch, which I don't know why I'm not on that. I have to get on that. So you can get tickets right now for the New Year's Eve show on my website. But I have to, today I'm doing that, adding a button for where you can just either donate or not donate. It's fine. I just want people to enjoy the show on New Year's Eve, since we're kind of barren to our homes at the moment. And then MicheleTraina.com is my main umbrella. So you can find everything for Divorce Diaries, Propbox Players, and other projects that I'm doing. That I did a commercial in the Midwest that I was like, hey, you want to see my commercial reel? Go to my website. So Divorce Diaries Show all over YouTube, all over Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. I'm still trying to figure out Snapchat and how to expand on that, and TikTok, website, everything, email.
So it's good to hear all these things. Good to know that you're hosting a show on the New Year Eve. Wish you all the best with the show. And I know there are other points about the single mom. We'll take another time from you, and we'll come back and we'll talk about those things too, how the life would be. If you have time, I'm fine with that. But if you want to take it on another day, we can talk about it. So do you want to talk about it now, or do you want to do it another day?
Yeah, I'm here. Let's do it. My daughter's playing in her room. She's doing good. She's good.
Okay, perfect. So how is it like, being a single mom and leading the life? Handling everything. Finances, and taking care of the kids and the house, and also looking at the, again, another aspect is the dating. You need to look for new people and then do all this. So you have many things to juggle. Being a mom itself is many things, but a single mom would be more work. So how are you handling it, and what are the suggestions would you make to the other people?
Do you see the bags under my eyes?
I cannot see on the camera. Maybe my eyes are also not that great right now, probably.
We're actually going to take a picture of our thing and put it on my Snapchat.
Okay.
Because I'm excited. I am taking it one day at a time. I'm handling it though with excitement, and here's why. I want to cry. I probably do cry every day, but it's stressful with the homeschooling. It's stressful with the things that get thrown at you. But I've been looking at this today, the pandemic in general, as like, this is the real, where your real grit comes out. Like, how much do you want what you want, and now, like, push every day to try to lead, to do an edit, to do post more content. So how I've been handling it is to figure out how I can reasonably get what I want to get done in the day, and then not being too hard on myself, because there was a period in time where I was working nonstop throughout the day, making my daughter just be on the computer, play on her own, take 1 hour and go outside and then go back to the work. Cause I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay for, like, I have to work from home now. I got to make stuff happen. Like, and now, and it was scary. I went up and down all the time. But I think I just try to focus on the drive and the hustle. And if I'm having a day where I feel so unmotivated, I just allow myself to feel that, because I have to allow myself to have those moments. If I don't, I'll crumble even more. I think that it's important to have a support system. So if it's safe and you can leave your child with a parent or a brother, a sibling, then you should, for like an hour or two, and get some work done. Because if you don't do, or do something for yourself, because if you don't, you're not going to be any good to anybody else. And I have had that. So that's been very helpful. And making sure you set aside at least, like I said, that hour. My daughter and I used to go for an hour to the park when we couldn't even go to the parks, like we could just go around it. I would set aside an hour a day for us where I put my phone away. It's just me and her. And that went on for a while. But then when things were opening up a little bit, like we had a little bit more time to do stuff. So, and then things shifted because she needed my attention more for school. So then my schedule shifted again. I was like, oh God, I'm not going to get enough work done. I'm not going to get enough leads. How am I going to do all my shows? How am I going to get more clients for my theater company? And then I just said, okay, you're going to keep your focus just on your clients you have right now for your theater company. Really push your show, Divorce Diaries, because that needs to be on a network, and that has to go a little bit faster than the other things. And if you don't have to, like, if there's no priority in certain other things, look at the time that your daughter is sleeping eventually, right? When she finally falls asleep, when she's playing, those are those moments where you have to do work. When she needs your attention, you put it down and you go. So I've had to, like, basically be flexible, right? In how, in being able to help her, my daughter. And also I've had to be flexible in not making everything a priority with work, having to pick things that are priorities. Does that make sense? Which is hard, because I feel like my businesses are all priorities, but you have to pick and choose sometimes, especially when you have a child who needs you, especially with a child who's who processes. She processes like me, but she when I was a kid, I didn't process like she does now. Right now, it's very different, and I have to really give her that attention when she needs it.
Gotcha. It's very nice. I mean, you brought up a couple of points about you should be flexible in scheduling your things. But I mean, the challenge with that, I mean, is you have to be very disciplined enough. I mean, to do the flexi. Usually, once I postpone one thing, I do postpone one thing, and it'll be hard for me to go back to it.
Yes, I agree. So I like that you said discipline, because this is so funny. Just so you know, I can't hear out of this one and I can't hear out of this one. This is a single mom struggle right here. I have my dollar store earphones in. So I actually think that the pandemic has made me more disciplined than prior when I was working from home, because I started working from home in February when I left my school district, and I was just doing that was my new schedule I had to maintain. And in working from home was like, my home base is home, but like I go out and do gigs, or I go out and do my theater company. But now it's strictly really just home, where like I have my setup is back here. I don't know if you can see it, but this is all here, like my costumes. I have Divorce Diary stuff behind me. So sorry to make you guys dizzy, but my microphone's here. So
whole setup there. Yep.
So I always create this schedule. I think I mentioned it before when I kind of zigzagged through my point of how you actually apply it to your life, but I create a schedule. So in the beginning, it was all time, every time. Let's just hustle. Let's get people. I'm switching over virtual. I'm launching virtual theater. Let's get everybody on. Let's pump my LinkedIn. Now I write in the morning, and I make sure I always write for an hour. I segment into what I'm writing for my stand-up, for sketches, for posts. I post throughout the day as much as I can. And then when I do a lot of work at night when my daughter's asleep. And then I make sure I also set in stone. You can go to the bathroom. My daughter is actually behind me. Okay. So, and then I also make sure that I stick consistently with my performances that are not just booked performances. So for example, I because I can't do open mics as a comic or random last minute gigs, or I do 2 live streams a week that are my open mics on my YouTube channel. I was doing a lot of podcast episodes on the Divorce Diary Show podcast, but that for some reason it's like the one on the lower of the totem pole of the brand, because I don't have as much time to spend as on it, which is BS. It gets to the waistline because I have sketches, I have posts, I have writing, I have shows, and then the podcast, right? So I was making sure I did a podcast once a week. Now it's going to go down to probably once a month and do shorter ones every Sunday because I can do it while I'm working. So sticking to consistency in my schedule is important. And then also knowing that as a single mom, that may change. So whatever I can hold on to that's consistent and is flexible with my daughter's schedule, that I will do. And I do a lot of live show. Like I do my show when she's with her dad, because then I have complete and utter concentration on just my show. And if I got booked in another show, then I ask my mom to watch her or figure it out. But that was tricky in the beginning because you couldn't have anybody. Like I had to do a lot of shows with her here, and it was hard. It's very difficult, but she was a rock star and went with it.
Very nice.
And my kids shows she's the part of. She makes the slime for them. My theater company, sorry to interrupt you.
Sure, no problem.
So the theater company, Propbox Players, actually is my focus on incorporating my work with my daughter because it's meant for children. And she inspired me even more to expand to sensory theater because of the amount of sensory components in her day that help her stay on task, help her feel good, help her enjoy her day. That to me is my work, but it's meant to be during the day when she's with me, so she's a part of it. It doesn't feel like I'm working.
Very nice. Now it's you're kind of you are included your daughter also into the show, so you're also engaging her, and you no need to worry about who is going to take care of her and all those things. You kind of made your one of the I would say the point which you need to be worried about, made the part of the show, and made it easy for you and her and for everybody. That's a very good thing. Smart way to do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%, 110%, 110%. I can't speak.
One last thing from my side. I mean, many people, I've seen, divorces going through. I mean, some people have a job prior to the divorce and have some skill or the other. I'm sure everybody has some skill, but they have not been practicing them for a while. And all of a sudden, they are on their own. So what do you think they should do, or if they don't have any career before divorce, so how can they cope up? Any ideas on that? I know it's a little different or vague question, but yes, is any?
No, that's okay. So if they have no kids, you were saying? I'm sorry.
No career, like no career, like no job.
Oh, okay.
They're not making any money before divorce. Yeah, that's so. How do they cope up? It's not that easy for them.
It's not. So I love that question because so if you weren't working in your marriage, like let's say your spouse was the sole provider, then this is your opportunity to find something that you love to do and go do it. And if you can't, and you're like, well, I need to pay the bills, then pick something that's going to pay the bills and allows you to grow within like what you think you might want to do. I think that I've never been in that position. I've always had to work, unfortunately. No, not unfortunately, fortunately. But if you feel like, I get it though, because there's people, I've met a lot of women too, that they just dedicated themselves as mothers with no career, and they left all their dreams on the side. Or even men I've met who had they were the stay-at-home dad. So I think it's now your time to shine. So the advice is, find something that fulfills you, especially during the pandemic where you have the opportunity to pick something while, I mean, I know it depends, like pick something that you really love, because look, tomorrow you don't know what's going to happen, right? And just do it, and don't say that you just can't. The more obstacles you create for yourself, the farther away it will become. Just do it. Like I've had people say, well, you need the right camera crew, you need the right cameras to do Divorce Diaries because they're saying networks just want to buy it now. They don't want to have to like spend money and then come film you. But I don't have that. So if I keep saying, well, I have to wait, then I'll never get it on tape. So I'm just doing it. And if you don't like it, you know, whatever, then you don't have to, you're not a part of my life. If you don't do it, you're not getting to that next stop fast enough. I don't know what my daughter's doing behind me. What are you doing behind me, Grace? What are you doing? Did you hear that noise?
I heard the noise of something. I mean, yeah, probably she's making something.
Sounded like a mini town. Oh, there was a bunch of cranes. You can come on and show them, but we're not. She's anyway. So I think that just doing it is the first step, and having faith that you will go up, because if you're not doing it, there's nowhere for you to go, right? You're stuck. At least if you're taking the first step and doing something towards getting a job that you want, or that at least will pay bills, then you're already a step ahead.
Perfect. I mean, thank you very much for covering many topics. Do you have any other final words to the audience?
I just want to thank you guys for having me. SQTV, you're awesome. You guys were so awesome today. And I sound very awesome, right?
You did. For sure.
I need a second cup of coffee. No, I just want to thank you. And I can't wait to share the link. And I hope you guys all follow Divorce Diary Show on YouTube and come to the New Year's Eve show. I'll send you guys the link. I know it'll be a different time zone, but if you're still up and wanting to party the New Year's Eve celebration,
certainly, sure. Okay. Thank you very much for coming and sharing all your thoughts and experiences. Have a nice rest of the day. Wish you all the best with whatever you do. Thank you.
You as well. Take care.